Welcome, 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 welcome. Ep.2, Tri-Valley Insiders. I'm your host, Eric Dillie, with my co-host, Jake Vital. We're coming to the world from the nurturing biosphere of the Livermore Valley, the fertile crescent of grape growing, as we like to call it. Jake, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm feeling pretty good. You know, life's good. Life's never a bad thing. The sun came up. There's air in my lungs. I feel good about being alive, especially living here in Livermore. And speaking of Livermore, that's why we're here. The city council met twice this week. And the first meeting was a marathon meeting. It started at about 7 o'clock, approximately 7. And it went pretty late. Over 100 public speakers spoke. The entire meeting, for the most part, was consumed with agenda item 4.2, I believe, which is the Eden Housing Downtown Plan.
I believe that's correct.
And I listened to most of it. I didn't listen to it all because, I was making dinner and family life, and when you have a family at night, sometimes you can't just spend all night listening to city council meetings. But I listened to a lot of it.
Well, in all fairness, I don't have a family, and I still couldn't listen to all of it.
Fair enough. And what I heard was what I expected. Okay, there were people who were for it and against it. And last time we spoke on this topic, we both agreed, and we understand. We tried to make ourselves understand both sides, right? Especially this one. This one's close to home for me, especially because it's my neighborhood. And we both agree, Jake, that people need places to live. We're in this situation right now in our state especially, but it's also a national issue. There's just not enough housing supply for the demand.
Absolutely.
And in California, it's even more out of whack, and that's why our property values, thank God, I own a home. Thank God, I'm great. I am grateful to have been in a position to buy a home here. But the fact is, if I were to buy a home right now in 2021, we couldn't afford it, right? We were able to afford it in 2015. Can't afford it now. So I think we both agree that affordable housing is clearly needed. People need a place to live. And when I was listening to the comments, I think that held true. Most people, the majority of them that I listened to, acknowledged that we need affordable housing. Really, the problem came down to where it's located, right? So the council did approve it 5-0. I listened to every one of their. Go ahead, Jake.
What a shock.
Yeah.
Jeez, I would have never guessed. Who would have thought that they would have approved 5-0 on such a divisive plan?
Yeah, no, I think the outcome was always known, right?
Well, the thing is, it's not like Prop P, because,
Measure P.
Measure P, thank you. You remember, you and I were on completely different sides of that. I was fully in support of it, and I still am. That measure... The original plan was a good plan, and it had a lot of support, but this isn't that.
Yeah. I voted against Measure P. I'll be honest with the world about that. I was not in favor of that. I acknowledge the fact that we need a hotel. I like to spend time in Napa, the city of Napa. We always stay at a hotel. Downtown. We don't stay out in the valley. We stay in a hotel downtown. For our region to be taken seriously as if we want to become more known throughout the world as being a place where wonderful wine is produced, we need hotels, especially one in beautiful downtown. But the placement of that hotel, I don't want to rehash that. That's old news. It's done. It's being built. It's like there's activity out there right now.
Yep.
But yeah, whatever. That's ancient history. But we did think differently on that issue, and we don't think the same on a lot of issues. You and I, and you and I are still friends, and we're able to coexist in this world together, and so we go, right?
Absolutely.
But look, yesterday they voted, and it was 5-0, and for all intents and purposes, this is pretty much a done deal at this point. Here's what I foresee, though. This is my prognostication of the future. Okay. Putting on my fortune teller hat here. I think this is definitely it'll make its way to some sort of court scenario. So the opposing group has retained a commercial real estate lawyer, okay? And that lawyer did issue an opinion that was read at the city council meeting that they're violating the density regulations per the downtown plan, specific plan.
And at the same time, the city attorney had commented on it, and in his opinion, it did not violate the plan.
That's right. And like any scenario like this that plays out, both sides don't agree legally. It doesn't matter what their opinions are. It really matters what the court's opinion is, or a judge's opinion when it actually goes to court, right?
Hey,
And I
opinions
think
are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
that's true. And these people are educated, well-informed, trained lawyers. Of course, they are the authorities on this issue, but they also work for political purposes.
Mhm.
The city attorney has to keep his position. You keep your position by keeping your counsel happy. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, dude.
Yeah. His options are either he says that it's not against the plan, or he says it violates the plan and the city gets a new attorney.
Yeah, or they get really upset with them and this is a bad mark, right?
Yeah.
So look, it'll end up in court. I think the other side is certainly motivated to take it that far. There is no referendum opportunity. There is no ability to vote on this. That's all passed. That's a done deal. The only option left, if you're against the hotel, or I'm sorry, my bad, if against Eden housing in that particular location, the only recourse now, if you're opposing, is to have a judge rule on whether or not the plan violates the specific city, plan. So I don't know. Look, at this point, I have other things to worry about, right? So do you. I mean, we'll see what happens here. It'll be interesting to watch, and I think the fight hasn't really even begun yet. The fight is actually coming. It's coming, if there is one at all.
Yeah, what do you think that fight's gonna look like?
It'll be a situation where people are gonna, of course, like what we see every day. They're gonna be online talking. They're gonna be issuing opinions. The city council will have to address it publicly. But behind the scenes, you'll have files and briefs being submitted to court, and it's up to the judge. It's up to somebody from that side of our checks and balances system, right? The judicial branch,
Yeah.
to determine whether or not there's anything there, and if there is something there, then they will take care of it one way or the other. I think that's coming, and a lot of that happens behind the scenes. It's not public until it becomes public, right?
How do you think all this decision making really happens nowadays as far as city council, and why is it not as amicable as it used to be?
Well, I don't know how it used to be. I just know what it was like when I got here in 2013. And people who I trust and who are elected or connected to elected of people in the valley, especially Livermore, obviously, have always told me that Livermore is one of, and I think all cities operate this way, all government agencies, especially here in California and Alameda County and throughout the Bay Area. In my experience, I have lived elsewhere in this country,
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced different political cultures in different parts and regions of this country, and here it's a little different, and there is a sort of who you know and who you're connected to. It's strength for you if you're connected to the right people, right?
Yes.
And that's not abnormal. Look, networking is essentially how things get done, and especially in the political world. And the difference here in Livermore, I believe, is that it's consolidated to a group or to an oligarchy. Do I use that word?
I think that's a fair word to use.
I think it's a fair word to use. And we don't need to go over the reasons as to why that's the case, but it has something to do with the size of the community, how the community developed and evolved over the decades, right? But I'll just give you an example. I mean, I'll stop talking about it and give you an example. The current mayor was the former mayor's hand-picked guy.
Mm-hmm.
The former mayor has admitted that in maybe not in the newspaper, maybe not in a public forum, but he sure as hell said it behind the scenes numerous times. It's his guy. He's my hand-picked guy, right?
Yes.
Well, our former mayor was somebody else's hand-picked guy. And I know that because the mayor who hand-picked him, I know. Okay?
Yes.
We talk, we eat lunch. And that was his hand-picked guy. Now, in what American democratic representative democracy election is the hand-picked guy, the anointed one,
at a certain
automatically
point,
given a position,
At a certain point, that representative democracy starts just representing the last representative.
That's the way Livermore is operating.
Yeah.
And the hard part is, and that's fine. If that's how we want to roll, cool. But we have to get to the point to where when people oppose or have dissenting opinions as to what the ruling class has, in my experience, personal experience, when you think differently than the ruling class in Livermore, they squash you, they take you out, they try to end your career, or they try to, they try to defame you in public. And that's just, look, it's like teenagers in a high school. But the stakes are higher when you're an adult and you have a career and you have a livelihood to make and reputations to maintain, right? Facts aren't always adhered to, and the truth isn't necessarily what's the most important thing. It's, oh, we got to win this fight, and this person doesn't think like us, and we got to squash him. And that's the way it works in Livermore, man.
Yeah.
You know that.
But the ruling class, the city council, and their supporters can basically do what they want. And speaking of which, you'll probably get a kick out of this. You heard about the councilwoman who is trying to put forward a plan to have, what was it, a Philadelphia gay rights flag flown? Not just the gay rights flag, which I would be all in support of that as well.
Yeah.
But the Philadelphia gay rights flag, fist and all.
Yeah, so, I mean, full disclosure, I am a huge supporter and ally for LGBTQ folks. I always really have been. Even when I was a kid, and look, I'm older than you, but I'm still young. You know what I mean? I wouldn't consider myself old yet. I'm not a young whippersnapper like you, and you grew up in a time where even more so is the case that LGBTQ, just the community has been more accepted, mainstream, right?
Absolutely, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's the best thing. I mean, it's we're all human beings, and love is love, and we should all be treating each other with respect and respect each other's choices when it comes to who you want to be with, romantically or in a friendship with, right?
Absolutely.
It's not for you and I to decide those things. It's just not, and we need to support everyone. As a teacher and educator, I often, when I started my career in the early 2000s, coming out and being open with your sexuality really wasn't mainstream yet. It was getting there, and kids, they suffered, and I know this as a kid myself going through school in the 80s and 90s, that kids who were gay or lesbian, they didn't have it wasn't easy for them, and they suffered emotionally and socially because they had identity issues, right? They didn't know if it was okay to be gay. And one positive thing now through the fight over the last couple 2 decades, I guess, is that kids now understand that it's okay, and they're not killing themselves at the same rate, maybe perhaps as was happening in the 80s and 90s over these issues. So, but the point, coming back to the Philadelphia Pride flag, I didn't know much about the Philadelphia Pride flag. I didn't know what it was. Everybody knows the Pride flag, right? It's the rainbow flag, and you fly it, and we all know what that means.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, it's. I have a Love Livermore T-shirt. I bought it when the first not Love Livermore, Livermore Pride. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say that's not quite the same thing.
That's an entirely different social group. Anyway, the point is, I was an early adopter of the Livermore Pride Festival, and I bought a T-shirt. It was like $42, and that's okay because I knew where the money was going to a good cause, right? And a T-shirt like that should cost $15, but fundraiser. I attended that. It was an amazing celebration. Look, I'm a pretty conservative person in my personal life, right? I live a traditional family existence. My wife and I have one child, and we both think a certain way when it comes to our family unit, but we fully embrace and accept that our way of doing things is not how everybody lives their life, and I love everybody, and I want them to be happy and healthy and how they choose to live their lives or how they were born, right? But I didn't know what the Philadelphia Pride flag was, so of course, it doesn't take long. There are some really wonderful Facebook groups, community-based groups about Livermore, and people post things. And I saw a picture of the flag, and it's the rainbow flag with a fist, right, in the middle of it. That fist reminds me of our track athletes in this. I think it's 1972 or 76 Olympics. It was a protest. It was an early sports protest. Way before Kaepernick and way before any other famous protests. They were protesting racial injustice at home, right? So their names. I'm embarrassed to not remember their names. I should know this. But there were two of them. One was the gold medalist on the top, and the other was the silver medalist. So that fist is the fist that's on on the Philadelphia pride flag. So what do you know about the Philadelphia pride flag?
Well, admittedly, I don't know that much. I haven't really focused on Philadelphia's gay pride, on a part of not being in Philadelphia. But I can say that it doesn't look like an inclusive symbol by any stretch of the imagination, especially when if you did just the normal pride flag, it's absolutely inclusive. And it's inclusive to everybody. That's something that we can all get behind. But you don't accept people with closed fists. You accept them with open arms.
Yeah. I've actually just Googled it just now as you were talking.
I know, I can hear all the clicking.
Okay, I'll be a little... gentleness is not one of my character traits. I'm usually pretty rough on things. So
we will get better at the background noise.
I'll tap softer.
Okay.
So I'm looking this up. It's not so much the I googled Philadelphia pride flag. Okay.
Yes.
And what came up is the basic pride flag that we all know, and the one that's in question right now with the city council is I'm seeing it's called the BLM Fist Pride Flag, March for Pride. I'm also seeing it called the Resistance Pride Flag.
The Resistance Pride Flag?
Resistance. So there's a Progress Pride Flag. There's a Rainbow, which is the one we all know. The Philly Pride Flag that I'm looking at is the regular Pride Flag, but at the top above the red is brown and a black stripe. So I'm not sure.
I mean, I wouldn't really have issue with that either.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the controversy is on this. I mean, I guess it's the fist, it's the symbol, it scares people. I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, let's be honest. What movements have had a closed fist as their symbol that have been peaceful?
Well, that's a question and a topic for another podcast. We don't have the time today to get into those issues. But
more importantly, why does it have to be that one with the fist? Why did she choose very specifically a controversial flag that people would be opposed to when you have a very inclusive and very accepted flag that doesn't have the fist?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not entirely convinced that this is the flag that they have in mind or she has in mind. I saw this image of this flag. And, okay.
Are you saying that the article that we were reading was...
Perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps it wasn't factual.
I'd definitely like to get more information on that.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. So I guess there's two separate issues here. It's Livermore citizens. This happened in Dublin last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dublin. This was an issue in Dublin. It was an issue in Castro Valley as well, Castro Valley High School.
Yes.
But in Dublin, it was controversial for about 2 days. It went to the city council, and a couple city council members wanted to create a policy first before they flew the flag, right? Mm-hmm. There is an openly gay city council person. He's a great guy. His last name's Kumagai. He's a really good dude, serves the community really, really well. Of course, he voted yes right away, no questions asked. He's also a military veteran. Not that matters for the story, but it's just he's a great guy.
Yes.
And we know the former mayor pretty well, and we know the current mayor pretty well, and he was the mayor then, and she was the vice mayor then, and they all voted yes eventually, like a day after they took the. But I think it's smart for public officials to create policy on things like this to cut the controversy out, right? To cut the second guessing out. That way you have a guide to follow when you want to fly other flags.
Absolutely.
So they have a pretty good policy, and they flew the pride flag. This might have been 2 years ago, actually. This wasn't last year. Last year was COVID. This was the year before that. So 2019, and they fly the flag in June at the Flagstaff. Now it's Livermore's turn, right? So this has come up. I think we have a policy because we took the cue from Dublin, and our policy is if a city council person wants to fly a flag, they bring it up with their colleagues on the council, and they vote on it, or they all agree to it in some way, and then they can fly it. Yeah. Right? They can fly it. So, I mean, if you have a council person up there who wants to fly, what's another flag, man? Give me a symbolic flag. How about the POW flag, the POW MIA flag from Vietnam? I see that a lot.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to fly that flag, I think they can. If somebody wants to fly the pride flag, I think they can. So there's that issue. I think that issue's already been solved. Can we fly the flag? Yes. Not everybody's going to like it. Sure, we know that. The second part of this issue is, which flag are we flying? The one with the fist on it or the rainbow flag?
If it's the rainbow flag, I'm all in support of it, and I'll even back the council on that. But there's a fist on that flag. There's something wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go there, right? Because this is already going to upset people, and upset people is fine. I'm not really worried about upsetting people.
I really, really hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the article is wrong, and I hope that whoever made the article was lying. Because this idea of effectively a militant symbol being flown in our city, chosen by our city council, that's a terrifying precedent. Forget the inclusiveness, forget the LGBT and all that, because we're all going to be in agreement there. It's just the idea of this militant thing. And the question is it an actual issue, or are dissenters just trying to make shit up?
So I have breaking news on this. I just found some more information about this particular flag. So it's LGBTQ pride flag with the power fist, inspired by Black, Brown, Philadelphia, Philly gay pride flag, which is that brown and black line at the top. And I think we should definitely, once we will have an episode where we talk about racial tensions and issues in the Valley. Mm-hmm. And we'll have a pretty awesome guest on who's a black Muslim, right? Who has a lot of opinions and a lot of informed opinions about what it's like to be black over his 52 years of life and being a Muslim on top of it. And he'll be a great guest for us to give us insight into those issues. And perhaps we put a pin in this one for that episode, because the fist is a completely different symbol for a completely different sort of movement, social movement, right?
Absolutely.
One that it's a powerful movement, and of course in our current political climate with all that's happening and all that has happened, we're 1 year from George Floyd, right? From being, I mean, he was murdered. We all saw it. We all watched the video, and I can't watch it twice, but
yeah,
you want some life perspective, and you want to know, if you want to put yourself in an empathetic position, you watch that video if you haven't, and it's bad. It's over 9 minutes of neon neck, while the guy's handcuffed. It's ridiculous that happened, but it did.
I agree.
So and it did ignite more social. I've lived long enough now to see multiple social movements ignited by situations. You can go back to Rodney King. You can go back to the 80s. We had some things happen. You go back to the 60s and 70s. The 60s were the civil rights era, correct?
Yeah.
One of the civil rights eras, but the one that's sort of fresher in our minds.
Though let's be honest, who's going to want to hear the opinions of two more white guys on racial injustice?
Yeah, well,
we fully agree that it's fucked up, the things that are happening, and we need to fix it.
Absolutely.
But
I think we'll have a good time with that episode because I've lived. Yeah. You're right.
We need more experienced and more relevant of a guest for us to be able to have that dialogue.
Yeah.
You and I alone can't do that.
No, not alone. And I can tell my story and my experience till the literal cows come home, and there are cows close to where we're broadcasting right now.
Yeah.
Just to give you a preview of that, I for 5 years I went to school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, and we lived next, and we were poor, and we lived in an apartment complex that was considered to be not nice, affordable housing, if you will. And I lived next door to a school that I couldn't attend at that time in Baton Rouge. They were busing white students across the parish. They call them parishes; they're not counties. To integrate predominantly black schools. So I was on a bus for 45 minutes. I was one of 3 white kids in a class of 30. I was probably one of 20 white kids in the whole school. It was a larger school. The school's no longer there. It's different. It goes by a different name now. And I, dude, woo, man, I experienced some things. Lots of fights and lots of tension and things. And I'll tell you how I navigated through that and became a better person because of my experience there. We'll do that later. But yeah, who wants to hear from us? about such issues. We'll have a great guest for that one.
Yes.
So let's circle back. We've covered a lot of ground. We've covered
A lot more than we're meaning to.
Yeah, I think
we went majorly off topic today.
Well, we did, but it's okay. I think it was productive, and
Yeah.
perhaps we can set up or preview what's to come. But we've already done that a little bit with our racial tension, sort of the state of where we're at as a people and a nation right now, as far as our ethnicities and cultures and races go. We'll talk about that later.
But now, my question is, when are we going to get to the upbeat, positive parts of our community? Because that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a discussion about our schools soon.
Yeah.
And there's certainly some good stuff happening there. There's also some stuff needs to be addressed, and we need to talk about from a constructively criticism perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that for sure. I hope to have, the circling back to this pride flag situation. We'll circle back as soon as there's decisions made and there's some resolution to this. I certainly hope that we do fly the flag. Don't know which one it'll be though. Not sure where I stand on the one that's not the traditional one right now. I just don't know yet.
Yeah, I get that. And there's other things that we need to start talking about. I want to hear more about the local businesses that have actually survived, how they're doing, and how they're planning on rebuilding.
Yeah, this is a topic that excites me because, I don't need to repeat this over and over again, but I'm downtown a lot. After when I pick up my daughter today from school, one of our traditions is we go down, or it's early release on Wednesday, 1 o'clock. We go downtown, man. We have lunch and we hang out and stuff, and it's fun. We've been doing that since last June. We started this little tradition. I'm down there a lot, and I've seen just every time I'm down there, every weekend, just more and more people converge, and it's good to see. I think our downtown businesses are definitely on their way back.
Who do you think's doing the best right now, and who do you think needs some help?
I'll tell you what. I mean, I think the Ale House has always done well. You know what I mean?
I do love the Ale House.
COVID. I mean, I actually obviously don't know what their finances look like, but I'm sure it's strong. During COVID, they actually transitioned to a grocery store. So did Simply Fondue. I have a friend who is good friends with the Simply Fondue owners, and I think they're okay. My daughter and I like to do our dates. We ate at fondue recently, and I think they're coming back. Rusty, right? Rusty's Chop House.
Yes.
Is an awesome place, and I hope he's doing well. He also owns Hop Divine, which is one of my favorite places as well. Pennyweight Brewing is fantastic. If you haven't been there yet, it's at the corner of Railroad.
Yeah, you actually turned me on to them, and I've been there 3 times now. It's been the best, in my opinion, as far as atmosphere goes. Being able to sit on that patio, having a few beers, especially when it's just warm enough of a day. Yeah. Anybody that hasn't been there, you need to go try it.
Yeah, you can go inside now too. The inside is incredible.
That RV, it's so damn cool.
So I think still my favorite brewery in the city is Shadow Puppet.
Yes.
Because Shadow Puppet just makes really great beer. And just so you know, I have an informed taste on beer. We have a brewery in the family. I've liked beer, I don't know, 25 years now. Do the math. I drink, before I probably should have legally. But anyway, look, the point is I really enjoy it, and I have certain tastes, and Shadow Puppet fulfills all what I like in a beer. Altamont's great. Don't get me wrong, but Shadow Puppet's great too, and Shadow Puppet actually has made themselves huge supporters of police and fire and first responders in the city of Livermore.
Yeah.
Politicians will do events, including former Mayor Marchand and our current county supervisor, David Halbert, did an event together, actually, at Shadow Puppet.
I believe I was actually there for that event.
I think you were. I think that's that you. I remember, and I didn't go. I had something come up, and you had a good time. You had some good pictures there.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
But I think the places that are struggling right now are. So Hops and Sessions is one of my favorite places in downtown. They had a model where you pour your own beer.
Yes.
Right, and that was the coolest thing ever. And then COVID hit. And then when it came time to reopen your business, because they have food and the food's good, it's still different for them. They had to change their method a little bit, and they didn't open as fast as like Sauce did, or even Aviation. Aviation, I think, might be struggling a little bit. So get to Aviation if you can. The rooftop bar.
Yeah.
Hops and Sessions, get to them.
Before we continue this, actually, let me say we're going to be continuing this conversation in our first episode of After Hours. As for Tri-Valley Insiders, thank you very much for tuning in. Stick with us, and we're going to have a bit more free form. We'll see how this goes. Have a good day.